What a year 2025 has been for the Wandering Pen podcast. We have reached the season 2 finale. But first, I'm going to go over what we've done the last year, how our statistics have measured up. "2025 was the very first year that I've had a consistent season. It was season 2. Season 1 there was a few episodes, but nothing like season 2. I was bound and determined to do something with season 2 to make it consistent and go regularly. And I did that until I got to the end. And then it kind of like fell off with the holidays and different things. But anyhow, so here we are. Finally, the stats for season 2. Drum roll, please. Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-bum. According to my reporting sources, we, as in you, the listeners, and me, the host, did an excellent job. And I want to sincerely thank you all for who listened, who took time to listen as you were driving, as you were doing your chores, or whatever it was that you were doing, and for sharing and for helping to get the podcast out there to reach its goals. So what we had here was 38 episodes, had over 2,000 downloads for season 2. And that is meaningful growth according to my reporting sources. Consistency was increased. The topic range was expanded. The SEO, which is the search engine optimization, that's where Google, when it's searched, when a topic is searched for, it gets picked up by Google or other search engines, was strengthened. And I had built an audience momentum. And what that means is people came back and listened to it, listen to different podcasts, the various podcasts, new podcasts. And this all happened without me spending a dime for paid ads. So that is what is so wonderful, to think that if I would have, been able to buy ads and promote it and to put it out there, what I would have done. So maybe for season 3, I'll be able to do, for season 3, I'll be able to do that. So we'll see. But anyhow, so my reporting group thought I did an excellent job as starting out and as someone new at this. And again, I'm really grateful that you guys stuck with me, and I am new at this, and I have all kinds of ideas for season 3, and I hope that it only gets better and that you will even enjoy it more. And they said that I just gained some real traction, and that I am so thrilled, and so again, just so grateful to all of you. So for the season finale, my guest, it was such a pleasure to interview her. She had a large story to tell, and one that is very important. And yes, it is a long interview. She is a member of the Skaroreh Katenuaka Nation from North Carolina, connected to the Tuscarora tribe. She will share with you about her people, about what she does, and she will share about an event that, as she was doing ceremony at a Native American burial site, what happened there, and that involved a court case where, because she was physically assaulted, and she had sent me an email yesterday giving me an update telling me that she was going into surgery as a result of the assault that happened 2 years ago. So the court uh, case, I believe, completed this past December. So she will be coming back sometime in the next couple months, giving you an update as to what the results of that court case was. So I do want to say, though, that the gentleman who did assault her was a off-duty police officer, and he did lose his job. Just stay tuned and listen to that story. Anyway, so welcome to the Wandering Pen podcast. I'm Christine Musser, your host. Welcome to episode 38. Today's episode took place on Monday, November 10th, 2025. Today's guest is Jane Jacobs. She is a resident of Wilmington, North Carolina. She is part of the Tuscarora Nation and the founder of Eastern Woodland Protectors. She is on the following boards: Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women, North Carolina, and the American Indian Movement Incorporated. Her activism recently brought her into a court case tied to a sacred site, a confrontation over land long held by her people, and an assault by a police officer amid efforts to honor those grounds. Welcome, Jane, to the Wandering Pen podcast. I am so excited to have you here and looking forward to this conversation.
No
And
way.
I want to tell you, I live not far from Carlisle, Pennsylvania, here in Cumberland County. And of course, we're where the Carlisle Indian boarding school was held. And Dickinson College just announced that they are opening a center at the college and naming it Jim Thorpe Center for the Futures of Native Peoples. It will be near the site of the former Carlisle Indian Industrial School, the first federal off reservation boarding school founded with the intent to kill the Indian, save the man, through forced assimilation of indigenous children and young adults. So it's something that I think it's long in coming. It's it's just going to be really wonderful to have that here, and it's the right place to have it because it's where it all started.
Yes, ma'am. That's interesting to hear, and hopefully that can have a progression towards healing for our people as well as the people who were over the atrocities that happened to our people there. Hopefully it can come together and be a place of meeting and a place of understanding, rectifying, and healing. And then you have to heal to be able to move forward. So hopefully we can heal from those things to make sure that they never happen again.
Yes, absolutely. So now we're going to get started on your journey. Uh, how about if we begin with you sharing your connection with the Tuscarora Nation, what the land means to you, the history, and there is a Tuscarora State Park here in Pennsylvania, which of course happened because of your nation. So you go ahead and get started.
That's beautiful to have the park there. Knowing that the name is everywhere. My connection to my people, that it's something that runs real deep because it's a connection to the land, right? Without having the land, you don't have the people. And so when we look at things, all of the land, the people, the land, the water, the language, those are all one and the same thing to us. That is who we are. We are the land, we are the people, we are the water. We're made up of these things, we come from these things, we live off of the land. I actually am living on my ancestral land right now, which is a change that has been kind of recent for me, which has just intensified my connection with my people. I can feel my ancestors here. I'm living where one of my great great grandfathers was a chief, and he was a treaty signer, and he was a leaseholder. Samuel Smith and John Jack Braveboy were both chiefs on this land. This was after we're on the Indian Woods, what was called the Indian Woods Reservation, is where we're living now, which came about after the war that we had discussed, Fort Naruka, the Battle of Naruka, where over 1,000 Tuscarora women, children, and warriors were slaughtered. The colonized people brought in other tribes to help fight us. They couldn't defeat us otherwise, so they brought in the Yamasi and the Catawba to fight against us, and they were able to defeat us at Fort Naruka, which made our Trail of Tears, where some of our people went up to Lewiston and were taken in by the Seneca, and some of our people, as far as the treaty that went along with Fort Naruka and the war, and the treaties that were made afterwards. 650 families had to stay behind in the state of North Carolina in order for those treaties to be valid. So that connection to here, it it's everything. A lot of people don't think the way we do, and I don't know. I'm a nature person, like I said, that connection to the land. Like, I can see faces of my ancestors in the trees. You're walking through the woods, and all of a sudden you feel them, they're looking at you, and you stop and you look and you acknowledge, because that feeling and that power is here. We had a forest fire a few weeks ago, and I got frantic. It was real close to where my house is, and we're acres upon acres of woods here, and we've been in a drought in North Carolina this year. My son was dealing with the fire department and the forestry service on trying to get the fire put out, and I was out here squirting trees and squirting the house with water. And my son comes up and he's like, Mom, he said, "You're not a fireman." He said, "Get out your drum, get out your medicines and pray. What are you doing? You need to be praying right now." And when he made me realize that, I understood my purpose, right? I understood my connection to the land, and what I could do to help in this situation. So that's what I did. I got out the drums and I got out our sacred medicines, and I put smoke up, and I started praying, and I started singing, and I was praying for the fire to go out. I was praying for the fire, if they couldn't get it out, to let it change the direction where it wouldn't hurt the people's homes, right? Knowing in my heart of heart that the animals were being hurt at that time, right? That their land was being destroyed, that the raccoon and the possum and their squirrels, their houses were getting burned up at that time. It was hard. And so I'm just praying, and I'm praying, and I'm singing, and I'm beating the drum, and I beat the drum so hard that I burnt the leather. I burned a black hole into the leather. But all of a sudden the trees started doing this crazy swirly dance, the trees started doing, and the wind shifted to the opposite direction of where we needed it to go. It went where we needed it to go, to make it where it wouldn't be a bad situation for people losing their properties. And I don't know why it surprised me, because I know what our ancestors would do for us. I know that we're connected to the land. I know that the land hears us when we speak as well. But I was so shocked that the wind shifted, that I'm like jumping up and down, just as happy as can be. And then the tears started flowing. And when my son finally got here, I was just sitting on the porch beat up, and he's like, "Mom, they got it out." I'm like, "I know, they let me know. They let me know it was gonna be okay." So that connection to the land, it's like that for most of our people that haven't been completely decolonized and forgot where they come from and who they are.
Mhm.
Um, a lot of our people feel it when we have relatives come up here and visit that have never been to the Indian Woods Reservation before. They're like, "We see why you left."
Mhm.
Yeah. So that connection is huge.
Yeah, and the connection you mentioned about the Seneca, but and you are part of the Iroquois Nation,
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
so which is in upstate New York.
Yes, ma'am. After the war at Port Naruka, when we had to leave, the Seneca gave us. It's actually funny because we live here. The reservation is in Lewiston, North Carolina, and the reservation in New York is Lewiston, New York. And so the Seneca gave us land up there and let our people come in to be safe. You know, there was already a relationship between Seneca Nation and our people. They had been coming down here previously for forever, so that relationship was already there.
Yeah, wonderful. It's really great. So, you also work with seeds. Can you explain what seed keeping means to you and how it helps your community preserve the knowledge and the resilience?
Mhm. You know, when I think of seeds, I don't think of just plants and trees and things like that, right? Because when we look back to the biology part of things, we come from a seed. We're seeds ourselves. So if we can't care for the seeds of the plants and the trees and the foods the same way we care for ourselves, we're doing ourselves a disservice as well. We're not honoring that we come from a seed. Things have changed so much that these seeds are so important. These heirloom seeds, right? These tree seeds, these fruit trees, all the things that, we used to be able to just take and grow. I know Granny back in the day, she would just cut a tomato and throw it out there in the yard, and then here comes all these tomato plants springed up. Because of colonization and capitalism, they've changed that now. You can't take a seed from a store anymore. You can't take a bell pepper and take the seeds from that bell pepper and put it in the ground and grow it. It's not going to work for you. They've genetically modified those where they won't have that same, they won't produce the fruit, the food, what we need, the nutrients. And so preserving seeds and the natural seeds is of the utmost importance, especially here living on Indian woods. The natural medicines that are growing here are abundant. I have made lion's mane tincture, black walnut tincture, mullein tincture, sweet gum tincture, nature's Tamiflu. The goldenrod is everywhere. And just this past time, it's been the urgency to keep more seeds, to get the seeds, why this stuff is growing. I just have a feeling that things are going to keep being messed with to the point that we have to be 100% dependent on pharmaceuticals, the things that they want us to have that aren't good for us, that cause one problem after the other. They gave me some medicine for arthritis because of something we'll speak on a little bit later, but I have to have shoulder surgery. And they gave me a medicine for that. And the first side effect it said in big letters on that medicine was may cause heart palpitations, may cause rapid heart rate. That's something I deal with already. So if I wasn't paying attention and I would have popped one of those little magic pills, my heart rate probably would have been through the roof. And there's no telling what could have happened from that. I can go and get some mimosa tree from the backyard and I can make some mimosa tea and drink that and calm myself down, and take some of the pain away. Use some wild lettuce tincture and take the pain away. So saving the seeds for the good, healthy, nutritious foods for our body. Creator, when he made this beautiful place, gave us every single thing that we needed to survive and taught us the instructions on how to do it, to stay in harmony and stay in peace and stay at one with creation, right? Like you never take all of something, right? When I found the lion's mane, to make the lion's mane tincture, my son got out and he instinctively knew, don't cut all of it, don't take all of it, leave it so it can keep growing so there's more, which it makes it really hard here on Indian woods because wanting to keep all these beautiful things. Living here, with moving from Wilmington, I was where, coastal area, it was the pine trees and all that kind of stuff. Well, here we are living where it's the most beautiful hardwood trees. I mean, there's a beautiful cottonwood tree in my backyard that I go out and sing that country song to it. I just got out of a cottonwood tree. That's mine, her song. When I go out and I'm talking to the trees, I'm singing that to her. And, they're all here. But we are dealing with one of the largest logging company landowners in the world here on Indian Woods. They are called the Warehousers. That's the name of the company.
Mm, that's scary enough.
Yes, ma'am. They own everything, and they're coming through here just hell bent on taking every single piece of tree they can, and then making these genetically modified trees, planting in their place, which don't have the same benefits. When we've been screaming forever, especially with my tribe, with Skaroreh, we have the Good Mind Project. And the Good Mind Project has shown us how we can take hemp and replace every single thing that these people are using that's destroying the land, and we can use the hemp for good. We found out that the hemp can clean the water. We fight the GenX issues down here, and they fight the GenX issues worldwide. But hemp can actually filter out the GenX, filter out the PFAS out of the water. So trying to get them to understand that there's other ways, but they don't want to hear those other ways because, just coming in with the machine and cutting it down, that's easy, that's profitable. And unfortunately, they don't have the connection to the land, so they don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Watching those logging trucks when they were actually on my road going back and forth, the little sign was right up the road from the house. And I'm gonna tell you, my son, I'm definitely a rebel. I'm definitely an activist. 3 times he took the spray paint out, out of the truck and wouldn't let me have it because I was gonna go write tree killers on their sign where it was saying
Oh,
slow down logging in session. I was gonna write tree killers, and my son's like, "No, mom, you can't do that." And I'm like, "Well, I want to do that because they're killing the trees, and it's so hard seeing the trees come by. They were alive, they were living, they were doing their duty, right? Because each and every one of us, when we were assigned to this place, right, we were giving the duties and the instructions on what we're supposed to do, what our part to society is. Those trees, our tree relatives, they have their part, right? They filter the water,
mhm,
they hold back the rains, they make it where things don't flood. um Seeing in Wilmington, North Carolina, they're fighting right now the sledge forest. There's a swampland there that's full, and it's just a beautiful swampland. The animals and the insects and everything that live there are just in abundance. They want to cut it down and they want to backfill it in, and they want to build apartment complexes and housing subdivisions on it.
mm,
We have just a small thunderstorm in Wilmington, North Carolina, and we're flooding like crazy because there's so much concrete everywhere. And my grandbaby, she lives here with me, and she's a little protector in her own right already. She
yeah,
fights for the water, she fights for the trees, but the transfer trucks that go by, and she's only 5, and so she's out there with her hands in the air, and she's shaking and she's yelling at, well, they're honking and waving, not understanding that she's not waving at you or asking you to honk the horn. She's yelling at you to stop killing the tree. She wants to live. She wants her kids to live. That's what she's yelling at these transfer trucks
uh-huh,
going by. So that connection, you can feel their life force when they're going by. You smell them. You see the fluid leaving them on the back of the trucks, dripping out of the back of the logs, the life force and the energy leaving. When there's other ways to be able to circumvent having to take what we need to survive, people should be listening to that. The hemp can clean the water, like I said. It can clean the soil, be used to make plastic out of. It can be used after cleaning the water. The byproduct of that can be used to make hempcrete, which is, it won't catch on fire. We can make houses out of hempcrete, tiny houses for the homeless people, with a byproduct of something that helped clean the earth and get things back into a proper working order. But we need
that's
people
it.
to listen.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's the Good Mind Project that can be looked up with Skaroreh on the Lost Colony Trading Post. page on Facebook, you can find information about the Good Mind Project, and that's where we're trying to get the hemp going, processed, and be able to reach out to these corporations that are poisoning, like the Chemours, the plant that did the GenX and the PFAS into the Cape Fear River. They actually just had the nerve to petition to be able to be the largest producer of PFAS on the eastern seaboard. Luckily, for once, Wilmington, North Carolina took their head out of their butt and said no. They'll let them cut down all the trees, but we're done with you poisoning the water. We're going to draw a hard line at that. But so if we can get them to understand that they're together, that those are two things that need to be protected.
Yeah. That's one of the things because of your involvement with the Cape Fear River and that pollution has sustained your people for generations. And
Yes,
here
ma'am.
you want to just they just came in and just started to pollute this water or
Yeah.
what happened there?
Well, so actually the Chemours plant, they started in Virginia or West Virginia. I can't remember exactly which it was. I'm sure you'll be able to see that there was actually movies made about that with Mark Ruffalo in it,
Oh,
called The Evil I Know, I believe it is, and then Dark Waters are both about the PFAS issue. But it started in West Virginia, Virginia, when they realized that they had a problem. Okay, so the product was called C8 at first, is what it was called. It was bought from DuPont, bought it from 3M. 3M specifically told DuPont, do not let this product hit a water source. Specifically told them that of the dangers to come behind that. They decided they were going to do it anyway. When they started having the birth defects and the cancers and all this stuff in Virginia or West Virginia, they decided to jump ship. So what they did was they moved and they opened a spinoff corporation called Chemours, is a spinoff of DuPont.
mm-hmm.
They changed one compound in C8 and changed it to GenX. And they brought it to the Cape Fear River and they started releasing it there.
Oh my, that's sounds devastating.
And the Cape Fear, that was one of our trade routes, our hunting, our foraging routes, from Bertie County here where I'm at in Indian Woods all the way to Fort Fisher in North Carolina. Those were the waterways we navigated through. Those were where we went and we harvested our fish from. Me and my son were talking about that the other day because we still try to live as sustainably as possible. We're not at the ocean anymore. We can't get the fresh fish like we used to. We were 3 miles from Wrightsville Beach before, so we were eating fresh fish, 5 times a week, basically. It was so good. Now that we can't get there, but we can hunt. So we actually had my son's father-in-law. He lives at the ocean. So he went fishing for us and he caught us a bunch of fish. We went hunting and we got some deer and we did it the traditional way. We traded the deer for the fish. And
Oh,
so now we both have good, nutritious food inside our freezer, but they've done everything they can to destroy that. The fish out of the Cape Fear, that was a sustenance place. There still are elders that have to survive eating the fish out of that because they can't afford the groceries. They gotta eat. It's been our traditional way forever. You're gonna go down there and you're gonna catch a mess of crappie or bluegill and you're gonna have a fish fry with the family, and that's what you're gonna do. But now the fish are so full of the PFAS that they're unsafe to eat. There's 30 more percent PFAS in eating one fish than there would be in drinking the water for a month.
mm. Isn't Cape Fear a major waterway like our Susquehanna River up here?
Yes, ma'am, it is,
There's,
and it connects so many different waterways with the Cape Fear. And it just it's a major, and then it outlets into the Atlantic Ocean.
yeah,
The Cape Fear and the Atlantic meet down there, and they've actually found PFAS in the fish. They found PFAS in the gators. We've done testing on the alligators here with the university here, NC State University, and it's, I mean, it's in everything.
oh wow, that's a shame. I mean, yeah, once it's in there, it's not easy to get rid of at all.
Yeah, no, that's a forever chemical, they say, but we know what the hemp can do, and we're holding faith that we can get the word out of the Good Mind Project, get the support that we need with the Good Mind Project to start getting this hemp processed out, so we can start going into the Kenmore's plant, because unfortunately, the way our government is run. Money talks and corporations win,
Absolutely.
right? So,
Yeah.
we know that PFAS making is never going to be something that they will stop because it makes money. So at least let us go in and surround this plant and the land surrounding it with the hemp
Mhm.
so we can stop your corporation from killing all of us so you can make money.
Right. Yeah.
Let us plant it.
Going to transition now into your situation at Bridgeview, and I understand it was a burial ground, and there was some archaeology work that was being done there. Take it from there.
Yes, it's called the Cedar Point, and it's in Bridgeview, Carteret County, North Carolina. It has actually been stated that it is one of the largest archaeological finds in over 30 years in the state of North Carolina. And it is huge.
Hmm.
And we always known what it is and known that our people were there. We didn't realize that they were already building houses on top of them. But so we went down there. It was June 23rd of 2024. The news had broke of the archaeological site being found, that there were human remains, there were bones. You could see that there were longhouses, there's pottery, artifacts, everything being found there. A group of intertribal people, we all went down there together to hold ceremony and to offer tobacco and pray for our ancestors. That was during hurricane season. And we knew that, this site was an uncovered site. All of this stuff could be, washed away and gone. So we had, children and elders with us. And we started at one part where we went to public park and held one part of the ceremony there that was open to the public to come. That was because not only is that situation our situation, it's also the people who came on the boat situation as well, because they believe that this is where the Jamestown people were taken to. Is to this site. So the significance there is a huge significance for all of our people on a historical level. So we went, then we did the first part was the public part. Bunch of the people left, and there was only a few of us left that went to where the actual site was, in Cedar Point. And the gate was open, so we drove down the dirt road. On the construction side of the Bridgeview subdivision is where we were at, and we had got out. There was like 3 or 4 cars came in. I had got out of the truck. I had got my medicines out, and I had got my shell out to pray and put the smoke up and offer the tobacco and the things we do. We had bought our ancestors strawberries and dark chocolate because we know those are two of the things that we love. And the time that we were there was strawberry season. And we have a whole ceremony around strawberries because that was one of the first things to bloom, right? That's one of the first sweet treats that we would get, when it would come time for things to be harvested was the strawberries. So we have a whole strawberry ceremony. But so we went, when we first got there and I'm getting the stuff out of my car and stuff, I had looked and, just surveyed the land and stuff and seen how beautiful it was. And I could feel our ancestors' presence there. And I was way excited to be on something with them there and that I could feel them there. I'm an empath, so I feel things very, very deeply. I noticed that there was a vehicle down by the water. There was a truck that was down by the water, and I didn't pay much mind. And go walking from my vehicle to where one of the other ladies from one of the other longhouses of Tuscarora Nation from in Maxton, North Carolina, was standing. Spoke to her, and this truck pulled up next to us, and it had an elderly couple in it, and they just started being real mean. Right, like right off the bat, what are you doing here? You're trespassing, you're this, that, and the other. And we were like, well, it doesn't concern you. Do you own that? You don't own this piece of land. So basically, it's not your business if we're trespassing or not, the way I was looking at it. Then they started saying, ignorant stuff like, there's bones all over this country, and I'm Cherokee and I don't care about the bones. You shouldn't care about the bones either. Well, when they started speaking like that, I was like, I'm not going to let anything ruin my day. So I was like, peace out. Y'all have a good time. And I turned away and I walked away and I went and offered tobacco and I went and talked to my ancestors and touched some trees and touched some things that were out there and was just connecting and letting them know that we know they're there and we're gonna fight for you. We're gonna try and help to keep this spot. So those people, I don't know whatever happened to those people, to the lady, because like I said, I turned around and I walked away. Well, we weren't there for very, very long. One vehicle of people had already left, which actually had most of the men that were there that day were in that vehicle. So what was left behind was my vehicle, which had me and my niece, my son, his girlfriend, and their 5-year-old baby, my 77-year-old Aunt Betty and her daughter, my 70-year-old uncle, and then Brandy Alvarez and her two small children. That's who was left behind. And we were walking, going to our vehicles, getting in our vehicles to leave. I was actually already in my vehicle. My son
Yeah,
was walking. Ma'am?
yeah. I hate to interrupt, but my understanding is you were in regalia. I mean, you were
Yes,
dressed
ma'am.
in traditional.
Yes, ma'am. We were all dressed in our traditional
Yes. So
clothes. Yes, ma'am.
this was, it was ceremonial,
Yes,
very
ma'am.
much.
Oh, 100% ceremonial. 100% ceremonial. Like I said, we went with dark chocolate, strawberry, sweetgrass, tobacco, all the things that they love. And we're very specific with ceremony, right? And some of us were doing ceremony, right? Because that's one thing that some people to understand. Like some people are ceremony natives and some aren't. Okay, so like I did not have like my phone or metal or anything like that besides, anything that I was wearing with me because I do work with our sacred medicines. Some people don't work with our sacred medicines. They were just there with us for that event, so they had their phones with them. So I was actually, it was my son and the elders that he was getting to their vehicles. He was out walking with them. His girlfriend was parked further up the dirt road with the baby in the car. I'm in the car with my niece in my truck leaving, and it's a two-lane dirt road. All of a sudden, I see my friends that were ahead of us, Crystal Cavalier and the people from Seven Directions of Service. There was some Catawba Nation and Choctaw and New River Catawba people that were there with us that day. I see their vehicle, but then I see a truck come flying past them as I'm going down the dirt road, and I'm not thinking anything too much of it. We're leaving. We're gonna go get something to eat with my uncle and go to my uncle's speedway. Well, all of a sudden, this truck pulls itself dead in front of me and slams on its brakes dead in front of me. And I was like, okay, what the heck? And this man jumps out of his vehicle and comes up to my vehicle and he's just yelling and he's being disrespectful and he's saying things like, F your ancestors' bones, you're trespassing. Da, 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 da. Well, then he starts in with my son. And my son, like I said, is out there with elders and kids. Okay, and I'm in the vehicle, and the man is fixated on me for some reason. I don't know if it's because I'm the first person he saw, or I had the prettiest smile that made him mad. I don't know what this man's problem was. He needed to eat. He wasn't himself. He needs Snickers. I don't know. We find out later he was drunk. He's fixated on me and he's saying things to me, and I'm like, you can hear me in the video. I'm like, oh my God, with everything he's saying, I'm coming back with something snippy because I'm like, this dude is ridiculous at this point, right? Well, then he changes and he starts focusing on my son, and the threats start coming out. He is threatening, I'm gonna F you up. I'm gonna F you up. And I'm like, okay, who are you gonna F up? And I'm paying attention now. I'm going way slower in my driving. What's going on? My child is out here and he's basically alone. There's no, my auntie's 77, my uncle's old. Neither one of them are in a position to be able to help him if anything happens. So all of a sudden everything changed. The energy changed in the air. My hair stood up on the back of my neck. And he said to my son one more time, I'm gonna F you up right now. The way he said that put fear in my soul. I immediately put my truck into park and I jumped out of my vehicle and I ran and got in between them. I did not get in between them because I thought my son couldn't defend himself. That would have never been why. He's a warrior to his heart. He would have done what he needed to do. I got in between them because I know his spirit. And I didn't want his spirit to have to deal with something like that. That's a lot of negative energy and a lot of rage. And no, don't put that to my kid. And then the other thing that I didn't want my son to have to deal with, unfortunately, is we know Carteret County is a sundown town. And my son is a little bit darker skinned than I am. There was no way I was going to let him get into an altercation that would have put him into a jailhouse that he might not have came back out of. We know what happens to people that look like us in that county. So I got in between. And the first thing you hear me say is, he says it again to my son. He says, I'm going to F you up right now. And the first thing you hear me say is, that's a GD lie. And that's when I got in between them. And I got in between and I said, what are you going to do? Hit a woman. The next thing I know, all heck broke loose. He swung over me at first, and I did not know the reason why until later, is because my niece had came up behind me and he went to go hit her first. And so he clocked her in her face. She was 17, and knocked her to the ground, which left me and him tangled up. And so I grabbed hold of his arm and I'm trying to pull this man away from my child and my niece to get, everybody to a level of safety. Just get this man away from them and everything's going to be okay, is what I'm thinking in my head. Here's me not understanding that I'm, 59 years old at the time. I've had a couple of back surgeries already. I have rheumatoid arthritis, not in the best health. I couldn't move that man. So the next thing I know, I'm wrapped in his arms, I'm wrapped in a headlock, and I'm still trying to move his body away as he's squeezing. Only thing I knew what to do was bite. And so I latched on with my teeth and was shaking my head like a badger and trying to get free. I realized what was going to happen is that he was getting ready to slam me to the ground. I could tell by how he repositioned. He grabbed me by the back of my ponytail and the way he positioned his body. I knew I couldn't leave that man up there with my kids, that if I went down, I did not want him up there. So what I did at the last minute is I reached into his shirt and I reached and wrapped my hand around and I grabbed into his shirt and I held on for dear life. What law enforcement that I'm friends with have told me, and like my doctor and stuff, they said because of me grabbing onto that man's shirt, I probably saved my life that day, because the way he threw me was gonna break my neck. But because of me grabbing on and holding on, he couldn't have that same leverage because he was coming down with me. The only thing that I was thinking in my head is to give my kids a minute to get away, to get to safety, right? You coming down with me, they can run, right? They can get safe. And little did I know my kids are like me and they're not going to leave anybody behind. They're going to be right there to help. But that gave my son enough time to help be able to get this man off of me, and this man's wife, this man, and she was in my son's face as well, which you've seen the video, so you know how aggressive that woman was. She was the first one in his face, in between her and her husband. So her and my niece, I guess she had tried to get a hold of me. My niece removed her off of me, and they were down there fighting. So my 17-year-old's having to fight this grown woman to protect her auntie. My niece lost it because my niece is, we're MMIW survivors. My sister is an MMIW victim. She was killed 5 days before Christmas in 2018. And my niece Lisa, that's her baby daughter. That was her last daughter. So I was raising Lisa at that time. Lisa was living with me. So she's seeing this man and knowing what happened, to her mom. My sister, she was beaten to death. She had her throat cut. She was raped. She was stabbed multiple times. And for my niece to see somebody assaulting her auntie, which I looked, me and her mom looked like twins. We looked just alike. For these kids having to see that. So these people are all fighting. My son gets the whole time, like even at first when the man's threatening, my son is trained as a street medic. He works for security for our tribe. He is sergeant of arms for the American Indian Movement, our chapter in North Carolina. He's always been about protecting his people. That's who he is ingrained to be. So he gets the man in a de-escalation hold, and you can even see sometimes through the confrontation with my son's hands up in the air, those are de-escalation techniques. We did not know until after that it was a police officer. So he gets the man in a de-escalation move. He's got him locked up down on the ground so he cannot hurt me anymore. At first, I didn't realize that my son had hold of him. I thought he had hold of my son on the ground. So I'm trying to pull the man off of my son. The next thing I see, a gun leveled at my son's head, and I lost it. I really just lost it. I told that man if he didn't get off of my son, I was going to rip his head off. I heard my son say, "Dude, are you done? I'm not letting you up until you're done." Is what my son was saying, and then I realized that my son had him, and not the other way around. So I quit pulling on the man, this, that, and the other. But I let him know that you need to get off my son right now because this other Yoko came up and has a gun pulled on us, and I'm about to lose my mind right now. So the man finally gets off. Everybody gets up. And the only thought in my head is to get out of there. There's people here with guns. There's more people from this community. You can see more people walking that way. The thing is, these people told such lies that it's absolutely insane. Like, they said that we were at their house harassing them. That was never the case. These people got in their vehicles and drove to where we were at. There was no houses right where we were at. More people were coming. So we got out of there right when the police came. I walked right past the police officer and nodded my head at the police officer, got in my truck and left, and went straight to my uncle's speedway to get somewhere safe where we could figure out how hurt I was, how damaged I was. I was in so much pain I couldn't see straight. My son was beside himself wondering if I'm okay. I have heart condition. I couldn't breathe, so he was worried that there was something going on with my heart. So when we left, those people were still there. That's when, in one of the other videos that Brandy Alvarez has, that's when I found out the man was a police officer. You can hear him say in the background or something like that he was a police officer. Well, when we left, these people lied so bad, and they actually had it where there was arrest warrants out for me for assault with a deadly weapon on a police officer.
Hmm.
The next morning, the police surrounded my mom's house in Wilmington looking for me, front door, back door, side door, beating on everything, scared my 75-year-old mother to death because she didn't know what had happened yet. She just knew that we were out of town. And so for all these police to show up and she hadn't heard from me, my mom said she almost had a heart attack that day because she thought that I was dead. She didn't know where I was. And then these police are here looking for me. Yeah, that they lied and they did that. So luckily, being part of the American Indian movement, they protected me. They kept me in a safe house for 14 days. The first 5 days that I was in that safe house, I didn't know if I was here, there, or anywhere. I was so injured, I did not come out of a bed except room to use the bathroom. Was beat. I was hurt. I was under so much emotional stress. Stayed at a hotel the first night that it happened because the next day we to the emergency room to get checked out. Realized that the warrants were out for our arrest the next morning, for my arrest anyway. So we didn't want they didn't want me to drive my vehicle because they had my vehicle description. So my daughter-in-law and the baby drove my vehicle. I drove with somebody else. My son drove with somebody else, getting us all to the safe house where we could breathe. I'm in a vehicle in front of my daughter-in-law and my grandbaby, and we don't know if somebody messed with the brakes on my vehicle that night at the hotel. They get in a car accident right
Take
behind
your
us,
time. Take your time.
and the vehicle flips over into the ditch with my babies inside. Um, we turned around as fast as we could. They were okay. They were okay. I've never been so scared. Was able to get I'm yelling, I'm screaming, running to the vehicle, and then I finally hear my daughter-in-law. She's like, "I'm okay, mama. I'm okay, mama." I get her front door open because my door had the suicide doors where you have to open the one to get the little one in the back opened up by an old Toyota. So I get her out. I don't hear my grandbaby, and I'm trying to get the door pried open. Um, there were some guys standing there, and I was like, "Why are you just standing there? Help me open the door! Help me open the door! I gotta get to my baby." I opened the door. I think my baby must have been in shock or something because she was okay. When I got her door open, she had this goofy little grin on her face, and she's like, "What happened? We went spinning. What happened?"
Oh.
And I undid her seatbelt and let her drop into my arms, and I knew she was okay. And there were people that were there. It happened right by a church, and there was a house next to the church. And I guess these people were there. It was an Airbnb, and they were there on vacation. And I said these people had to think this was the oddest scene they had ever seen because I'm running up, and you can tell that I'm with these people, and I'm screaming about my girls and my grandbaby and getting the doors open. And then the other people that were with us showed up. Other family members were, right in the area because they were keeping us secure. So everybody comes back, and one of my cousins get back, and then all of a sudden, we hear the sirens coming, and they're like, "Jane, Joey, get the hell out of here, get the hell out of here now," because we knew the police were on the way. And so I'm sitting here thinking, what do these vacationers have to be thinking? What's going on in this little sleepy town of North Carolina? Why are they fugitives? What's going on? But we got out of there. My son ended up having a major seizure after this happened. He was so stressed out. Luckily, his uncle was there and was able to. He actually had went into the sweat lodge and was in the sweat lodge praying, and that's when he had his seizure. I realized something was wrong because I hadn't seen him for the longest time. I'm like, "Where's Mikey? Where's Mikey?" And the girls were finally like, "Well, he's at the sweat lodge." And I was in too much pain to walk to the woods, so I sent his uncle, and his uncle gets there. My son was not in this world at that time. um he was able to pull him out of where he was at, and prop him up next to a tree. And he went back in the sweat lodge, and he just started praying, and he came through, he came out of it. But I just sit there and think, we were leaving.
Hmm.
We didn't do anything wrong besides what they say that we trespass. But see, the NAGPRA, the Native American Grave Protection Act, gives us a right to be able to go on any of our sacred land and be able to pray. The Religious Freedom Act, and that's such a hard pressed thing for us because, I was born in 1966. We were not allowed to practice our religion until 1978. I could not stand there with the bowl of our sacred medicines and pray the way I pray. So for people to want to fight us for praying, you know. Um, and I went into a few months after that. I knew that I needed to forgive these people, so I asked our medicine people specifically, can we hold a sweat? I need to release this stuff. I need to heal. I need to let go. And so we did a sweat, and during that sweat, I forgave those people. I forgave James Delau. I forgave his wife. Would I ever trust him or want to be around him again? Hell no, never in a lifetime and a half. But I seen where they were coming from. I seen that they were coming from a place of fear, right? I seen that they were coming from a place of, I worked hard for this beautiful beach house that I have with this beautiful view. I don't want to lose the things I have. You can't tell anybody anything about that kind of pain but a Native American because we know what it's like to lose what we've had. We know what it's like to lose the beauty of what we had. And so I forgave those people for what they did and for how they acted, and I prayed for them. And my thing is, like, there's nothing to be scared of. Like, I know for me personally and the people I'm connected with, nobody's saying, "Give us our land back and get the heck out of here." You know what I mean? We all live here. She takes care of all of us. There's a way for her to provide for each and every person that's here, right? The only thing that we ask is let us take care of the land so it can be healed, so it can be productive. We look at things tribally. I'm responsible for the 7 generations that are in front of me. Every child, my brothers, my sisters, my nieces, my nephews, it goes for 7 generations. That's the same for my son. He's responsible for the 7 generations that come in front of him.
Hmm.
And that's how most tribes look at it. We're here to protect for those people. I fight for the water so 7 generations of people can have clean drinking water.
Hmm.
And I get so upset because, like, never would it be that any Native American, any indigenous person, any water protector, any land defender, any human rights activist, we're not fighting for those things just for us. I'm fighting for clean water for your grandkids, for your great grandkids, for your nieces, for your nephews. It's not never been a thing that it's only for us that we do these things for. We do these things for Ekwahewe. Ekwahewe is humanity. That's what we do these things for the human race. And I think it's hard for people to understand that because, we talk so much about that, we've, as Native American people, have lost so many things, and a lot of us have lost our connection with the things that matter and are important to us, right? But the thing is, so has everybody else.
Hmm.
The people on the boats, when they came, they were running from the oppression and the things that they were dealing with where they're from, right? So they don't have that connection to where they come from. They don't have that connection to the customs that they had for centuries and centuries. All that stuff's been taken away. So everybody needs to heal, and that's what we pray for is everybody to heal.
Hmm.
Because one thing that you can be sure of, right? When you think of most Native Americans and you think of our connection to the land and the animals and the insects and the water, why would you think that would be any different for our fellow humans?
Hmm.
It's,
Very true. Yeah.
you know what I mean? Am I going to really be more concerned about a tree than I am another living human being? I care about y'all just the same. And if people could understand that, it's not that, we're like, give us our land back and get out of here. It's too late for that. It might have been the thing if we could have got away with it in the beginning, if we knew how things were going to turn out, we'd been like, yeah, no, you give us our corn back and we're not going to teach you how to survive. But when you go back to being Equihellway, there's no way that that could have happened.
Right.
We couldn't have been true to the duties that we have and who creator made us if we weren't fair to each and every person that's here.
There is a court case now, or did it happen or is it over?
It is still ongoing court case. I am so disillusioned with Equihedwe, with humanity right now. Like I said, I had to move out of where I was living. I'm a water being. I was living 3 miles from the ocean in Wilmington. Now I live so far out in the sticks. I'm out here with bear and nutria and coyotes and bobcats, and I trust them so much more than I trust humanity at this point right now. I just had to be so far away from people, and then seeing the impacts that the racism against our people is still here. We have a hard role in North Carolina being Tuscarora natives because of the treaties that Tuscarora Nation holds with the state of North Carolina that they refuse to honor. We were one of the largest tribes here, treaties with the state, with the colonies, with England, all of those things. And so with them keeping us from our affirmation, keeping us from, because basically what happened is we're enemy non gratis, because what happened was Tuscarora Nation found out the crap from both sides of the stream, where all the other tribes were picking who they were going to stand with, which side they were going to stand with. At that point, we seen the destruction that was coming. We seen the things that were happening, and we're like, we're not standing with none of y'all. We wish you'd all go away at this point because we know what's coming. And so the state of North Carolina, for them to acknowledge that we're still here means a lot of things in the state would have to change. And that's something that they don't want to change. Like our original land here on the Indian Woods Tuscarora Reservation was 56,000 acres of land. We've bought back 60 that we had to pay for. to
Hmm.
get land back that belongs to us, which at this point right now, without us having our federal recognition, it don't belong to us because they decide they wanted to run a highway through my house. They're going to come and run a highway through my house because we don't have our sovereignty because of that recognition. We don't have the things that we need to keep our identity and our people flourishing and alive. We don't have the, and I would never say that, we would want recognition for funding, but would it help? Oh yeah. If we have recognition and we were able to get funding to grow this hemp, to be able to help clean the land for everybody, it would make life so much easier for us, right? But we have to figure out just from the generosity of people helping, of donating to Eastern Woodland Protectors, donating to the Good Mind Project, so we take baby steps on trying to get these things done, not being able to have the health care or the housing. There's not many people, like I said, I am actually residing right now. Like the honor is huge. My granddad, Chief Samuel Smith, he was a treaty signer. That is like historical big time stuff, and I'm like so honored to be living and walking the paths that they walk. When we take off, we do daily walks going to look for medicines in the swamps, and me and my whole family will trek up and we'll bring our little bag and our sticks with, and we'll wander around out there and find usnia and goldenrod and all the mushrooms, everything we need to survive, but to be able to have more of our people here to do it.
What,
But without having that federal recognition, we don't have the building blocks to
what,
be able to do that.
what about the Tuscarora that were there? Isn't this land important to them as well, or are they? What is it exactly?
hmm What is it boils down to financial things. Unfortunately, that's what it boils down to. The federally recognized tribe of Tuscarora people, our people, we have people that are alive right now that are our cousins that live up on Six Nations. We're still tied together so closely, it's crazy. That comes from a fear of them thinking that they're going to have to share something out of the kiddie pool, right? Out of whatever little crumbs the government throws. So they don't want to say, they try to say that because we stayed behind, that we gave up who we were. You don't get to tell us that. You don't get to say that. There's nobody, that I know historically in my family, people that I've talked to, loved, held, touched, that tell stories of their ancestors, my ancestors, their great grandparents saying, "Oh, we decided that we weren't going to go, so we're just not going to be Tuscarora no more." That was never anything that happened, and so it comes down to money, and
But
then just
isn't that land important to them, though? I mean, it's their ancestors that are there as
hmm
well.
yep, it is, but
Aren't
where we run into the problem is New York. The Tuscarora is there because of what happened with the treaty, and them being up there, they have no say in the land down here. And because of us not having our federal reaffirmation, putting us right back to our sovereign federal status that we've always had, like we are recognized by the state of North Carolina as the Tuscarora people, but we get no benefits, no recognition, none of that. And we're having to fight for our federal reaffirmation. Like I said, we were a federally recognized tribe. We have the
Mhm.
treaties. We have, Snow Hill. There's a monument there of Fort Neruka of that last battle. There's a huge monument at Fort Neruka,
So,
and it's in Snow Hill.
okay, so you're saying that the Six Nations
Mm-hmm.
that the Tuscarora became a part of,
Mm-hmm.
Seneca, has
Mm-hmm.
no say into, because if they're putting a highway through there, I mean, I'm in historic preservation and I'm familiar with Section 106, that if there's any sort of federal funding, archaeology, which I guess that's why it was happening,
Mm-hmm.
and if they find things there, legally they are not allowed to do anything with the finding.
Yep, that's how it should be. That's how it should be. But because of us not having our sovereignty here, that keeps our hands tied, and we can't get any of the state recognized tribes to step up and try to help us because they're scared of losing their piece of the pie as well. And then you have the whole Lumbee Act thing, that which is a whole crab in the barrel bucket thing that is just like absolutely insane at this point. The Lumbee people are, using Tuscarora language and Tuscarora songs and ceremonies and portraying those as theirs, and then they're not theirs. And so it keeps us in a big mess. But we're fighting. We're still fighting for our federal affirmation. We have lawyers and genealogists and scientists, all these things on our side helping us fight for our reaffirmation. We hopefully this time it'll go through. The next time we're in court, hopefully it'll go through.
Yeah, I mean, just from what I know, an ancestral site, a indigenous site, legally they have to bypass. They cannot do anything to destroy that.
Well, now that's the true, and we do have the laws down here for that, right?
Yeah.
But here's where we ran into a problem with the Cedar Point subdivision. Senator Lazarus took a payoff from the land developer of Cedar Point and tried to push a bill through North Carolina State, taking away the right when you find a Native American grave site. If you find an archaeological site, they were trying to take away and make it where it could just get bulldozed down and taken away. Luckily, it did not pass, and they weren't able to do it. And we've been putting a lot of pressure since we know he's the one who took that payoff. We've been saying his name loud and clear that we know he's the one that tried to do that.
Right, because the Native American Act,
Yeah, NAGPRA.
yeah,
Yep.
actually prevents that from happening.
Yep.
I mean, they're not allowed to take anything from a site, which
Yep. And that's where we run into problems too, because like Eastern Carolina University, because we don't have our sovereign status, they have so many of our artifacts and ancestors' bones are in boxes in their basements, and we have no right to them because we don't have that status. They won't give us our people back. They won't give us our artifacts back. They'll just sit in the basement to rot. And
that
we have a place, we have our trading post up here where all of our stuff could be honored, right? We would take our ancestors' bones and we would have our ceremony and we would put them away our traditional way, right? We would build our mound and that's where we would put them. And then that's where we would continue to put them. That's where I would be put. That's where I hope that, my son knows that's where I go.
I mean, when you go and you even see what's happening with Carlisle boarding school, those natives were able to come back and take
Mm-hmm.
their children back home
Yep.
and put them where they belong.
Yeah, that's because they have that status, because they have the sovereign status. And we found out since the attack, because people talk so much on social media sites now. You're the first interview that I've spoken. You're the first time I've spoken publicly besides a press conference before the court dates. I've not spoken to anybody about what happened to us that day. But these people are saying that whole area down there, the subdivision after subdivision, are on top of native grave sites, and that they've known it since the 70s. And then also we had the issue that the land developer at that site told the homeowners to deal with us. So they had a homeowners association meeting and said the next time any of these natives show up down here, I guess there had previously been Native Americans that were down there at the site. That was our first time ever being down there. So I don't know, what had happened with the previous people that were there, but they had made this conscious decision with the homeowners association that they were going to come down there and they were going to put boot through our ass basically and put guns to our heads. And yeah.
From what I'm hearing, this is so wrong
Yeah.
from a law sense, because of the acts,
Hmm.
historic preservation, or the Native American,
And what it is because of us not having that status, they can act like it doesn't matter. And for that being where we took the people that were lost, that is a huge fine. That is a huge historical site. That is something that we should be telling the story.
that's
We
my understanding. Yeah.
and that's what I would want. I mean, there's not much land that's left there, right? They built on every little spot of it. I mean, these people that beat me up, they even had the nerve to go get married on the exact site where they beat me up at. Is where they tied the knot and did their wedding vows. I was like, "Ooh, the sickness in you guys is deep. We're gonna keep praying for you because that was wrong on so many levels. If you thought that was a sacred place to get married after you beat up somebody that was just trying to share chocolate and strawberries."
My understanding is then the Tuscarora that went from North Carolina that's now up. They are in New York. They're not in Oklahoma, where a lot of the native tribes. They're in northern New York.
Yep, they're in northern New York because, like I said, we already had that relationship with the Seneca Nation and the people up north. That was part of our trading routes, right? Tuscarora Nation was huge. We took up from all the way down to, like I said, Fort Fisher, going all the way up the Raleigh Triangle area, going all the way up clear to Virginia. Our nation was huge. We had villages all along, and a lot of people get real confused because, like, there's state recognized tribes that are here right now. Like, I can use the Kahari tribe for instance. The Kahari tribe was not a tribe of specific indigenous people. That was a Tuscarora village,
Mm.
and that's what the area was called. And so now they are a state recognized tribe as being the Kahari people, but they are Tuscarora people, and it's like that all up and down our trading routes, all throughout. Those were Tuscarora villages that were here.
What about the Cherokee that are there? Are in the Choctaw? Are the Choctaw there? The
No,
Choctaw
the Choctaw are not here with us,
further
but the
south.
Cherokee, yeah, the
Oh, the
Choctaw are
Cherokee.
further south. The Cherokee, that mountainous region has always been theirs, and that's where they've been. And they know who we are, we know who they are. We've not had problems together.
Yeah, I just find it just blows my mind. Although dealing with developers, I know that they all they care about is just building whatever it is they want to build
Yeah.
and be done
Like
with
in
it.
Wilmington, for instance, they've overpopulated Wilmington like crazy, and all these builders have came in with these subdivisions, these apartment complexes. Oh, we're going to build you schools and this, that, and the other. They come and build the subdivisions and the apartment complexes, and you never hear from them again. And then now our schools are overpopulated and the roads are overpopulated. They don't do anything to help with the infrastructure for the damage that they've caused.
Well, Jane. Okay, to wrap it up here, what is it that listeners can do to help you, or is there a website that they can gain more information?
That's a good question. That's a
Yeah.
good question. We need as much support from our allies as possible, because unfortunately a lot of times when people look like me speak, they don't get listened to. I can sit here and tell people things until I'm blue in the face, and they don't take it one iota, but get a scholar that looks different than me come and tell them the same thing that I've been saying for 15 years, and all of a sudden they believe it.
Mhm.
So help us get the story out. Help us protect the land. Help us protect the water. It's spaces for people to come and support are always there. We need our allies. You can go to Eastern Woodland Protectors and find out things that we're doing. The Good Mind Project. You can go there and find out things that we're doing. We do land cleanups. We were just at a land cleanup on the Casheye River this past weekend. We stand up and we go to the Chemours plant. We're trying to get the hemp growing so we can, do what we need to do to clean this water. So there's always ways to support. And the Good Mind Project is, a great way. Eastern Woodland Protectors. We just came back from going to Climate Week, to fight for the water and the air and everything there, and fight for the people, because without the water and the trees, we don't have the people. They're connected, not just for my feet being connected to this ground, that we're all connected the same way. When, we leave this world, like, no different than roadkill. Unfortunately, if you throw on the side of the road, you're just going back to the ground where you came from.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so we're all connected, and we just want people to understand that, so we can all stand together to fight for the things that are important.
Mhm. Who do you know who did the archaeology there?
I believe his name is Chris Southerly,
Chris Southerly.
and we actually do have a court date coming up on the 19th of November. This is the day that finally we're going to be able to speak. We've seen the injustice within the justice system through this case. Never should an assault case be still trying to get tried a year later, almost a year and a half later. The district attorney would not speak to me. They had to bring in a special judge and special prosecutors because they could not get fair trial. The people who attacked us are connected to that county, so they couldn't get a fair trial. So yeah, I've not been able to work correctly since this happened. Like I said, I'm going to have shoulder surgery from what that man did to me, and it's just been a mess.
Yeah. Yeah, really sad, and I'm really sorry to hear of all of that. But you're doing some really good work there, and that's what keeps you going, right? I mean,
Yeah.
what you are able to do.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And I'm gonna keep fighting. Like even going to Climate Week, it was a challenge with this damaged as my body is right now. But I'm not gonna back down from any challenges. If it's gonna help the next 7 generations to thrive and keep Earth Mother going for them, I'm gonna be there regardless.
Yeah. Well, I thank you so much for taking the time to share all this about the Tuscarora Nation and everything that you are going through there in North Carolina.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
I will definitely put the links and pass this on to anyone I know that may have any sort of suggestions or whatever they can do to help in
I
any way.
appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely. To you, the listeners, thank you for taking the time to listen to Jane's story and her journey. And she is resilient and strong and determined. So, if there's any way you can help them, reach out to her through Good Mind or the Water Project. That both all these links are going to be below. And if you can share this podcast, this episode with someone, please pass it along. This is an important story. My conversation with Jane Jacobs of the Tuscarora Nation is a reminder that resilience is both an act of survival and an act of love. Her story, from the Cape Fear River to the Bridgeview grounds, speaks to courage, heritage, and the ongoing fight for justice. Thank you for listening and for helping share the voices that keep our stories going. Till next time, take care.